I should have kept driving. That thought has been looping in my head since I checked into this place. This godforsaken motel in the middle of nowhere. It was just supposed to be a quick stop, get some rest, and hit the road again by sunrise. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. It started with the silence. Have you ever been somewhere so quiet it feels unnatural? Not peaceful, just wrong. That's how it felt when I walked into the lobby of Motel 206. The place was dimly lit, dusty, and it reeked of something stale, like old wood and mildew. But what really got me was the fact that no one was at the front desk. I rang the little service bell. No answer. Hello? My voice felt too loud in the stillness. That's when I noticed the room keys. They were laid out neatly on the counter, numbered from 1 to 12. Each one had an old-fashioned metal tag attached to it. I checked the guest book sitting next to them. Blank. Completely empty. No names. No dates. I almost left right then, but I was exhausted, and I'd been driving for nearly 12 hours. One night, I told myself. I grabbed key number 6. The hallway leading to the rooms was just as lifeless. A long, dim corridor with flickering wall lamps and faded carpeting that looked like it hadn't been vacuumed in years. Room 6 was near the middle. The second I stepped inside, I felt that same eerie wrongness. It wasn't that the room was dirty or unkept. Quite the opposite. The bed was perfectly made. The furniture was in good condition, and everything seemed untouched. Like no one had been here for years. But somehow, the sheets were still crisp, and the air smelled faintly of cheap motel soap. I locked the door, tossed my bag on the bed, and checked my phone. No signal. Not surprising. I was deep in the Pine Barrens, a dead zone for cell service. I told myself I was just overthinking things. It was just an old, rundown motel, and I was tired. I took a quick shower, left the bathroom fan on for some white noise, and climbed into bed. At first, it was soft, a faint scratching sound coming from the walls. Probably just mice, I figured. But then, it got louder, like something big was moving inside the walls. Then, at exactly midnight, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I shot up in bed, my heart pounding. Who's there? Silence. I waited, gripping the edge of the sheets. After a few minutes, I convinced myself I imagined it. Maybe it was just the old building settling. Then, I heard it again. 3 knocks. I got out of bed, heart racing, and crept toward the door. Hello? My voice came out shaky. No response. I bent down to look through the peephole, and my stomach dropped. There was someone standing there. A tall, thin figure, barely illuminated by flickering hallway light. Their face was obscured by shadows, but they were too still. Not shifting weight, not moving at all, just standing there. Then, as if they knew I was watching, their heads snapped to the side. I stumbled backward. My breathing was shallow, hands shaking. This wasn't right. I checked the time on my phone. 12:03 a.m. Another knock came, louder this time. And then, the doorknob twisted. I scrambled back onto the bed, grabbing my phone even though I knew I had no signal. My eyes darted around the room. The windows were sealed shut. The vents looked way too small for anyone to crawl through. Then, another knock. But this time, it came from the bathroom. My breath caught in my throat. The bathroom door was open when I went to bed. But now it was shut. The fan was still running, but the sound was off, like it was warbling, struggling, as if something was inside the vent. I swallowed hard, trying to slow my breathing. Then, slowly, I stepped toward the bathroom door. My hand hovered over the knob, hesitating. Then, I heard it. A low, wet chuckle from inside the bathroom. Something was in there. I backed away. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my body felt frozen. The laughter grew louder, shifting into something distorted, like an animal trying to mimic a human voice. I grabbed my bag, yanked the door open, and sprinted into the hallway. That's when I saw the other doors opening. Room 2, Room 4, Room 9. Figures stepped into the hallway, their heads tilted at unnatural angles, eyes too wide, too dark. Their mouths stretched into wrong shapes. I ran. I didn't look back. I hit the lobby at full speed, slamming into the front desk. The keys were gone. The guest book was now filled with names, written in a looping, scratchy script. I turned to bolt out of the front door and came face to face with her. A woman. Tall, thin, her skin too pale, eyes reflecting the dim light like an animal's. She smiled, revealing too many teeth. "You picked room 6, she said. "That means you're his tonight." Behind her in the shadows of the parking lot, something huge unfolded itself. Wings stretched unnaturally, and the air filled with the sound of something clicking and chittering. The last thing I saw before I blacked out were 2 glowing red eyes staring back at me. I woke up in room 6. I don't remember how I got back here. My last memory was standing in the motel lobby, staring into those red eyes. Now, I was lying in bed, my bag still next to me, my shoes still on. The room looked the same, perfectly clean, perfectly wrong. But something was different. I sat up slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. The air felt thicker, like the walls had closed in just a little. My phone was still in my pocket, but when I checked the time, my stomach dropped. 12:01 a.m. I shot out of bed and bolted for the door. The lock wouldn't budge. The knob twisted uselessly in my grip, like it was fused into the doorframe. I pounded on the wood. "Hey! Let me out!" The walls absorbed the sound. The air conditioning kicked on, and a blast of hot air rushed into the room, carrying with it the scent of something rotting. I gagged, backing away. That's when I noticed the bathroom door again. It was open now, and something was inside. The light flickered as I stepped forward, my pulse pounding in my ears. The mirror above the sink was coated in condensation, even though I hadn't used the shower. My reflection was barely visible. The fog began to clear, and I saw myself. But it wasn't quite right. My reflection's eyes were sunken, ringed in deep bruises. My skin looked too pale, almost gray. My lips moved, but no sound came out. Then, it grinned. A slow, stretched grin, too wide for my face. My reflection's head tilted at an unnatural angle. Its hands, limp at its sides, started to twitch. I stumbled back. My reflection stayed still, watching me. Then, it raised one hand, but not to mimic me. It pointed to something behind me. I spun around just as the bathroom light cut out. The room was pitch black, the only light coming from the dim glow beneath the door. Then, I heard it. 3 taps. Slow, deliberate taps coming from the ceiling. My breath hitched. The air smelled damp, metallic. Something shifted above me. My pulse spiked as I bolted for the door, wrenching the knob with everything I had. This time, it opened. I stumbled into the hallway and froze. The other guests were there, standing in the corridor, their heads tilted unnaturally, their mouths hanging slightly open like mannequins. Their clothes were tattered, their skin wrong. Some of them looked mummified. Others had deep, raw wounds that never bled. All of them were staring at me. I backed away, my stomach churning. One of them, a tall, thin man in a ratty suit, stepped forward. His mouth moved, but his voice came out warped, like a cassette tape playing too slow. "You picked room 6. The others nodded in unison. Room 6? What the hell did that mean? I turned to run, but then I heard the sound. A deep, chittering growl, coming from the end of the hallway. I turned my head slowly, and I saw it. It was crouched in the shadows, just beyond the reach of the flickering hallway light. Its body was wrong, hunched and twisted, covered in patchy black fur that seemed to shift like smoke. Its limbs were too long, fingers tipped with jagged claws that scraped against the walls. Its head was like a deer skull, elongated and cracked, its mouth hanging open to reveal rows of jagged yellow teeth. Its nostrils flared, and when it exhaled, the hallway lights dimmed. But its eyes were the worst part. 2 glowing red orbs locked onto me with pure hunger. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then, it charged. I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just ran. My feet pounded against the hallway carpet as I barreled toward the stairwell. Behind me, I could hear it galloping, its hooves slamming against the ground. The sound was everywhere, bouncing off the walls. I hit the stairs hard, nearly tripping as I threw myself down them. The air felt thicker, like the motel itself was breathing. I reached the lobby. The woman at the front desk was still there, watching me with that too wide smile. "You can't leave," she said softly. I ignored her. I sprinted for the door, shoving it open, and staggered back. The parking lot was gone. In its place was dense forest. Twisted skeletal trees loomed in all directions. My car? Gone. The road? Gone. Her mouth wasn't moving, but I could still hear her voice. "You picked room 6, she whispered, her words crawling into my head. "You're his now." Something slammed into my back. I hit the ground hard, dirt and leaves scraping against my skin. The air was thick with the scent of rot and sulfur. I rolled onto my back, and it was above me. The Jersey Devil pinned me down, its elongated skull inches from my face. Its breath was hot, smelling like something long dead. Its mouth stretched open, and then it spoke. Not in a growl, not in a screech, in a voice that sounded exactly like mine. "You should have kept driving." Then, darkness. I woke up in my car. It was morning. Bright. Too bright. Birds chirped outside, the sound almost mocking me. I sat up, heart hammering. My hand shook as I grabbed my phone. The signal was back. But my GPS? It said I was 3 hours away from where I last remembered being. Motel 206. It didn't exist. I checked my dashcam footage. Nothing. 3 hours of a black screen. But when I pulled down my mirror to check my face, there was something on my neck. A bruise, in the shape of a handprint. I don't know what happened that night. I don't know if I escaped, or if I just woke up in the place it wanted me to be. But I do know one thing. Sometimes, you should just keep driving.